6 program. I was growing up.
Good afternoon. Design Review Board 1 public meeting of May 15, 2008 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and the DRB reconsideration appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note, well, I'm going to skip that for now. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Mr. Aliano? Absent. Mr. Ellis?
Present.
Mr. Insua?
Here.
Mr. Simonian?
Here.
Mr. Yu?
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on May 8, 2008. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? No? Okay. Review calendar. I have no staff announcements at this time, and there are no consent calendar items, so we can begin with the three cases.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Actually, before beginning, I'd like to maybe make an announcement. First and foremost, welcome to Design Review Board 1. It's come to my attention that some of these hearings tend to take a little longer than anticipated. With the new procedures, we're set to start at 5 p.m. and most of us haven't had dinner before coming here, and by 8 or 9 p.m. we're probably not as sharp as we'd like to be. Also, staff sticks around with us until the wee hours, and there's of course people watching at home until late hours in the evening as well. So I went back and reviewed some tapes, and we do a really good job of quickly stating our initial thoughts and ideas, and then we at times take another 15 and 30 minutes on a specific case and perhaps don't add that much more to our initial thoughts or ideas. So I think it might be a good idea for us to be efficient and succinct with our thoughts and perhaps not do as many, one more thing, and one more thing as we're discussing these cases. So therefore, if I see that a case is taking too long, I might just politely say, guys, let's speed it up. And let's get to the point. We have 5 qualified people on our board, and I'm sure we'll be able to really find the main points of a given project and discuss it holistically and as a group come up with all the main thoughts and ideas. So that was my announcement for this evening. And with that, we'd like to start with the first project, which is 1-PDR-2007-116-A, 1401 Hillcrest Avenue. Mr. Nazarian.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Presented before you is case number PDR 2007-116-A, located at 1401 Hillcrest Avenue. This is a second time submittal. Applicant had submitted initially, and the case was heard on January 10th, 2008, and decision was made to return for redesign with comments and conditions. Applicant is proposing to add 1,190 square foot to an existing 1,176 square foot of house that was built in 1940. It's a single-story house, and the proposal is to maintain it as single-story. The house total square footage will be 2,400, and it is sitting on a 8,266 square foot lot. Currently, there is a 1,176 square foot house that is in the corner of on Hillcrest and Olmsted. It is a corner lot. The project main entrance is going to be from off of Olmsted, which is not the address street, I should say, the wider portion of the lot frontage. And also, the applicant is proposing to demolish more than 50% of the existing walls and roof area. So we will be looking at it as a brand new construction as far as zoning code regulations go, and everything will have to meet the zoning code. It is in the Glenwood neighborhood, where most of homes are built in the between 20s and 60s, and they're mostly predominantly Spanish colonial revival. However, looking at the photographs submitted by the applicant, you can see there's a variety of other architectural styles as well in the neighborhood. Initially, when the board heard this case, there were comments made, and I would like to jump to the comments made by the board on January 10th. By the way, these are the plans. These are the old plans and the new plans, and the comments were made for these plans right here. First one was to add, because it was initially also proposed as a Spanish house, board made comments to add more Spanish elements to the design and keep consistency throughout the building, keeping the colors, materials, windows, and doors consistent with the Spanish style. In the new set of plans, applicant has created consistency throughout the proposed design, as noted above, with windows, doors, colors, materials, and details that are more appropriate for the Spanish style. The second comment was to redesign the entry tower and make the building on both sides redesign the entry tower and make the building on both sides of the tower more consistent with each other. As you can see, there was initially proposed a tower, and applicant actually what has done is eliminated the tower, and to create a breakup in the mass has created recessed entry instead of a tower to create a breakup in the massing of the frontage. The third comment was to provide a material sample board that actually depicted true colors, and I do have a sample board. It was too heavy to put it up on the board. If you want to take a look at it, has provided a sample board that truly depicts the colors and actual materials. Fourth comment was to provide elevation drawings also depicting the actual colors. These are the new elevation drawings that can be as close as they can be to the true colors that applicant has provided. Fifth comment was to unify window styles and materials throughout the building. Applicant is proposing wood windows with clad metal, with more unified window styles and design pattern throughout the house, which was not the case in the previous submittal. Sixth comment was to redesign the parapet and it does not look as high. What applicant has done is the overall height has made it as appropriate as it can be for the style and as low as it can be for its style. So the overall height of the building would be appropriate for the style and not as high as it was initially. Seventh comment was explore other options that include having an entrance from Hillcrest Avenue. Applicant has not changed the main entrance to Hillcrest Avenue, but what they have done is they have created a second entry with a nice open porch area, if you will, which makes a much more interesting facade facing Hillcrest, much more vibrant facade as opposed to what was proposed before. And lastly, redesign the layout of the house and come up with alternatives. Applicant actually did come up with some alternatives, 2 or 3, and worked with the staff. We had several meetings with the applicant, and we combined the alternatives, came up with this one. They came up with 2 or 3 different alternatives, and working with the staff throughout the past month or 2, we decided that this might be the most appropriate for the neighborhood and the site. It fits the site very well because they're proposing to also remove the garage, put it in the back, which is well designed as far as site planning goes. It is probably the best thing to do in this case because the garage was approximately at the current location. It is right here, and it's being pushed even further back in the corner. Additional comments. Previously, the applicant had proposed a Spanish colonial revival style home which did not have the massing, scale, materials, and details consistent with the style or appropriate for the neighborhood. as reflected in the board's comments. Now, throughout the new design, applicant has done a tremendous work and has done a great job, in staff's opinion, to meet those comments made by the board and to make the house as truly Spanish as possible in this case. And staff recommends an approval of the project based on the comments made earlier, and if you do have any questions, I will be available. Applicant is also in the audience.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Mazzardi? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first speaker.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
If I could also mention, in your report, at the end of your report, you received a section called Recommendations, Draft Record of Decision. This is something that we've added on this report and also on the Dorothy Drive report. It's something we'll be kind of looking at trying for the first time this evening, and that is the record of decision items that you see here are essentially summary items from the staff report. If what you see here then disagrees with what we hear in the discussion, we will make note of that in any conditions and so forth prior to your making the motion, and then that additional information will be provided in the record of decision. That way, going forward, there will be some very strong information in our file as to the basis of your decision tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any questions for staff? Thank you. Our first speaker is Dia Gurgis, who is the designer. Please state your name for the record and welcome.
Yeah, Gurgis. Yeah, I'm here just to answer any questions you might have. We tried to implement as much as possible all the comments and that you had in the initial submitted.
And you're the designer?
Yes.
For the project. Do we have any questions for the designer?
No. I just have a small one. The walls that are off of the living room and family room on the south side, why are they so thick?
We wanted to project certain size. We wanted to provide that size, volume, mass to give a certain scale.
Why just there?
I'm not sure which area you're talking about.
Why not over here too?
I think
You need to talk into the microphone.
What we could do is ask the designer to come up on the big drawings.
Okay.
Would you
Well,
please approach?
I think that may have been changed. Yeah. Can I ask Nivert with?
What I suggest is you come up, we'll give you the pointer stick, and you could address the exact concerns on the large drawings on the board. So if you would
Right.
please approach.
Okay.
Come this way.
I think some of these, some of the areas that we have here has been dictated by the size allowed. The certain size, we are limited in the size that we could develop by the ratio of the building, and we wanted to maintain. Some of this is existing as far as the roof line, that we wanted to maintain the existing roof line. So this portion of the building is existing while this is an addition. So we wanted to maintain this roof line. And we wanted to show the depths of the windows and the projection of the, we wanted to show the window and the elements, the window being set in and the depths of the walls for the Spanish style.
I see. The intent was to show the depth in the wall for the windows.
Okay. I still don't understand why it's just there, but yeah, okay, that's a reason. That's good.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
And this is a little off design review. In the kitchen, what is the nook? Up in the top left corner there?
The pantry, I think.
No, top left, lower left, right there.
I think this is this is not correct.
Okay. I was trying to quite,
This is just a table.
it's a okay. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll take that.
Any more questions
Thank you.
for the designer? Our next speaker, thank you, is Nevret Guergues. Welcome.
My name is Nevert Girgis. I can answer any of the design issues as well if you have any questions. And maybe I can go back to the thickness of the walls. Basically, in the Spanish colonial style, the true Spanish was, buildings were made of adobe, so they were very thick. So we were trying to incorporate some of those elements and have deep recessed windows and create that shadow line of the Spanish feel.
And I understand what you're trying to do there, and I think it's a very nice thing. It's just I don't know why it wasn't carried out on the same line to the other rooms.
We did it where we could, and then as you know, on to the right side of the plan, we're maintaining many of the existing walls, and we don't want to project out into the setback, as well as we don't want to decrease the size of the room. So it's not as appropriate on some of the bedrooms, for example, to do that.
But these are all new walls, though.
Those would, the one facing south, there's partially some walls that will remain and some will be thickened to match the other part of the south side, the new south side.
Okay.
And also, that is the main, the south side has the main rooms, the living room, the family room, the master bedroom. So those are the more special rooms, and also where the public would approach the house. So they see, the special features off of that side.
I have a question. You've integrated a second entrance to the home
Yes.
on the east side,
Yes.
and what is the purpose of that entrance?
It's to activate the east side. Some of the comments last time were that we were giving our back to the street, to Hillcrest, and we certainly don't want to do that. And so we've incorporated the door and a covered porch area where the owner could enjoy that side of the house and still maintain a certain level of privacy.
I have a question for you. In the landscaping plan, is there a connection between that side and the Hillcrest store? I mean, obviously, if you're looking at the Hillcrest, if this is your main entrance,
Yes?
but the house is actually addressed and facing on Hillcrest,
Yes?
the mailman, maybe people coming down the street would tend to want to go to the front of the house. They're going to realize they're actually not at the front of the house. And has that been considered as a thought? I mean, is there a way to, or is it's all planting, right, between the wall and the little retaining wall on the side of the house?
We still have the entrance at the corner. I
Right.
believe there's
Right.
a pedestrian entrance at the corner
Yes.
of the property. That still is maintained, and there's still a walkway leading to that secondary door.
But will you be able to get from that door, when you get to that door and you realize, oh, I'm not at the front door, it's around the
Yes.
corner?
Yes.
You will.
Yes.
Okay. Because I perceive just anybody coming down the street, they're looking front of the house, front of the house, front of the house, not quite the front of the house. I mean, I like what you've done, but it just seems that they're going to be tramping through your flower bed if you haven't.
I think we have some walkways.
Well, yeah. I'm
We-
saying they're
we
gonna
do
be right
address it
here.
with some
You know what I
walkways
mean?
there.
Because it's a 3-foot wall or a 2-foot wall. Okay. All right. Actually, one last quick question, and I brought this up earlier before the gate and the wall at the driveway are all on the property line, and I believe there may be some issue with that?
Mr. Nazarian just brought that to my
Okay.
attention. I was not aware of it, and we don't have any problem with setting it back
Okay.
the required 6 feet.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions for her?
I'm done.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other speaker cards for this project. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to talk about it? Thank you. So that concludes the public portion of this case. Mr. Ellis, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll be happy to start. I think they've actually made a vast improvement over what was brought here before. I commend both the applicant, the architects, and the staff for working their way through. It's definitely a nice-looking house. My comments I kind of made already. The wall along the driveway needs to be dealt with, and she's commented on that. But other than that, I certainly would support staff's recommendations on this project.
Great, thank you. Mr. Insua?
In the spirit of keeping it short and sweet, I agree. Perfect balance, the quiet side, the active side. Nice job.
Thank you. Mr. Yu?
I think I concur with you that they made a vast improvement on the previous drawing, and it helps to be able to see it, larger elevations with a little more detail on it. I think they've done a good job on it. I just had a couple of questions regarding the walls, and that's up to you. You can have your walls as thick as you want, and it's just some questions that I had. But I think you've done a great job, and I would support the project as is. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. I agree with the board. I think you've made a big improvement from last time, and especially with that entrance to the east. It really adds to the home. You're not really turning your back on that neighborhood, and you've made a nice effort to provide a nice entryway from the corner. So I support the project as well. So do we want to entertain
Take a motion to approve as submitted.
Great.
Okay, do we have a second?
May I only make the suggestion? I guess the wall, I don't need to belabor the point.
And we will go ahead and add the condition that the walls will be set back
6
per
feet
code
to per code,
requirements.
right. Okay.
And the recommendations and draft record decision that highlights, summarizes pieces of the staff report. Would you like me to read that, or?
I think so.
Yeah?
Reiterate
Okay.
it.
That she's already put here?
Correct. Yes, with the new procedure, it's going to be part of the record.
This will be very quick. The project provides entries at both Hillcrest Avenue and Olmsted Drive, addressing both streets with a sense of openness on this corner lot, and the garage is well placed at the rear of the site. In this way, the proposed site plan is appropriate to the property and the neighborhood. Overall, the size, height, and mass and scale is appropriate to the site, fits well with the neighborhood, and meets the intent of the design guidelines. The proposed high-quality materials, colors, and details appear to provide consistency with the Spanish colonial style for a well-crafted project. The applicant has responded to the concerns expressed by the board in the previous review, and as a result, the design has significantly improved and will serve to enhance the neighborhood. So, as we understand, the motion is to be approved with the condition that the walls will be revised and relocated per all code requirements.
And the motion was made by Mr. Insua,
So I'll second.
second by Mr. Ellis. This will be a roll call. Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Chairperson Simoneon?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Also for the record, since this project was deemed complete before the new ordinance, there will only be 7 days for appeal period instead of the new 15 days. That's just for the record. If anybody wants to appeal, there's only 7 days.
Thank you. Our next case is 1-PDR-2008-015-A, 420 Nesmith Road.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next project before you with the case number PDR 2008-015A, located at 420 Nesmith Road, has gotten a conditional use permit approved on December 7, 2007 to allow construction of a new dwelling on a site with an average current slope of approximately 70%. Zoning administrator also adopted negative declaration case number PEIF 2006-40 for the project on December 7, 2007. The project basically consists of construction of 3-story single-family residence with an attached garage. The lot is a vacant lot with 7,600 square foot, and the current slope of the site is approximately 70%. The zone is R1R, floor area ratio District 2. The slope of the site influences the design and shape of the house. The driveway slopes up to the street-facing garage, and a stone-covered retaining wall enclose the building on 3 sides. The house consists of 2 relatively modest floors above the garage. The floor terraces back as the house is built into a portion of the hillside. The building will be 35 feet at its highest point facing Nesmith, and it will be 12 feet 7 at the back, and it will be 1-story building. The proposed design nestled the house into the hillside. The first floor and the garage are built into the hill, and the 2-story configuration appears to follow the slope of the site as intended by the hillside design guidelines. The building appears modest in scale primarily because a significant portion of each floor is built into the hillside. The proposed design follows also the contour of the side, and materials such as the stone veneer makes the building appear a natural part of its surrounding hill. Stairs are carved into hillside, and the front balconies are reminiscent of Mediterranean terraced houses. The house is 1-story at the back, and the roof follows the slope of the side. Due to the slope of the side, the building is not visible from all angles, and its relation to the adjacent home is not the same as if it was adjoining houses on a flat site. The neighboring properties are a mixture of nicely designed large houses in a variety of styles. The proposed house fits well within the neighborhood due to the location of the site and the surrounding hills. Buildings, including the subject house, are not totally visible from all directions in the neighborhood. The landscape plan proposes a great number of plants which far exceed the existing vegetation on the site as shown on the landscape plan. The proposed details and materials are consistent with Mediterranean eclectic style, and the building appears to fit this handsome neighborhood. Through dialogue with staff, modifications have been made to the design, providing an elegant and consistent style. Then the new house is an interesting building with details consistent with the proposed style and material of high quality. The mass and scale appear modest and is appropriately built into the hillside, responding to the slope of the side as intended by the hillside design guideline. Staff recommend approval of the project. And this concludes my presentation. Any question, I'll be glad to answer.
Do we have any questions for staff?
I'm looking really quickly through the pictures here, and I'm just wondering, the numbers don't seem to match the pictures. I don't know, is that the applicant provided these?
I have another one, which maybe this is a better one.
I guess I'm getting a little, I don't know if it's a big difference, but I was trying to find the house next door.
If you'd like to check, please.
You must be the house next door. You'll have a chance, it's okay.
We
wait a
can't
minute.
have cross conversation
I'm
because
sorry.
it's being recorded.
But you know, you want to look at this?
Mr. Ellis,
The pictures don't match the
I
lots.
see.
and
So should we maybe wait till the applicant is up and then
Maybe
we have
ask
the
them,
applicant
yeah.
have address that?
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Okay.
That's fine. I just kind of wondered, because I've been there and I know where they are, and they don't.
So we'll put that
Okay.
aside for
question.
now, and then
Thank
that'll be
you.
one of the first things we'll ask
Okay.
the applicant after their presentation.
That's the same.
And as far as staff is concerned, do we have any questions specifically for staff at this point? Thank you. Our first speaker is the applicant, Behnaz Mahdavi. Well, we can't have conversation, but what I'm being told is Vic Behzai will make the presentation on behalf of the applicant. If you would state your name for the record.
Vic Behzai.
Go ahead, Mr. Behzai.
Thank you. In designing this building, we had a number of concerns. Number one was we had some zoning limitations as far as height is concerned, square footage, not square footage, but lot coverage, floor area ratio, and so forth. And in doing so, we tried the best we could to, first of all, follow that step-back design, kind of follow the slope rather than building one tower in front of the slope. And we definitely did stay within the limits. Our floor area of 2,275 square feet total divided by 7,600 square feet of lot area gives us a little less than 30% allowed. And our lot coverage is well below the 40%, 16% if we figure 1,220 square feet divided by 7,600. And the landscaping that we provided, as mentioned by the staff, was well above what is there now and what is required. The required landscape is 40%, and we provided 47% of landscaping. And as far as the height is concerned, we stayed within the allowable 35 feet. And in doing all of these, we also had to limit the grading that is performed at the site, considering all the issues that go along with grading and import and export into and out of hillsides. So our civil engineers worked hard on coming up with a balanced design for grading. We had, because of the steepness of the slope, 71%, we had a requirement from Glendale Fire Department, which, by the way, I take my hat off to every day. I used to live in Glendale, and I depended on them every day. And because of the requirement that we need to have a 4-foot clear area around the house, we had to come up with a creative way of grading the site to provide that. Our grading, the total cut was 465 cubic yards, and the total fill was 178 cubic yards. So we have an export of 287 cubic yards. As far as the design itself, we certainly wish to comply with the requirements and guidelines of the Design Review Board. So we, although we started with the Spanish style, we later decided, with the help and guidance from the staff, that it was better to go with a Mediterranean style. And because we wanted to use a little bigger windows and bigger openings and so forth, we ended up with what is called a Mediterranean revival style. And we did put some decorative areas of cut stone wall and decorative balconies in the front. So as we pass by the street and we'll look at the building, it looks more interesting and pleasing to the eye. We had a concern that we should design a building that does not put any strain on the infrastructure in place. So we looked into that, and we realized that Nesmith Road is a fully developed street with all the necessary infrastructures already in place. The sewer lines, water lines, power lines, the stone drain, everything else is in place. And considering the size of the building and considering the facilities available and neighboring areas, we don't feel that we are putting any strain on these facilities. And we also had a concern that our development should be consistent with the various objectives and elements of the general plan, Glendale general plan, and we realized that the site is zoned for a single-family dwelling, and that is precisely what we designed. So we stayed within the required floor area, we required height. We have not done the structural design yet, but that will definitely be in full compliance with the codes, and I believe that is what the general plan would like the applicants to do. Does this mean that I have to stop, or?
You've run out of time. That's what that means.
Okay.
Do we have any questions for the engineer?
I do.
Mr. Insua?
Obviously, you know that when we're in a hillside area, we want to try to minimize the retaining walls as much as possible.
Yes.
So you look at adjacent slopes and such and try to nestle the house in. Sometimes the nestling is in a box, even though it's multiple floors. Sometimes the nestling is tweaked and canted a little bit, since you have this little swale going down the site. So I look at this design, and that's a thought that comes to mind. But if we look at, may I have the applicant come up just to help us with the math?
Please approach
So when
the
I
board.
look at the sheet A1, I was trying to look at the math here, and top of walls and adjacent grades and such and so on. So you notice we have the property sloping down this way. And we have 1,000 over here. And
So
1,000
slopes this way.
Yeah, so we have 1,000, no, the property is sloping down,
This
right.
way, yes.
Okay, so the math, 1,000 over here.
Yes.
Comes across this way.
Yes.
And it keeps going back over there.
Yeah.
See, there's your 1,000.
Yes.
Top of wall here could be 1,000, a couple feet above that. And then, so it's actually dropping as it comes across here. And if you look at this drawing right here, see how much taller this wall is? You got this huge 15-foot high pit back in here. See how it is here? Because this is the front. So actually, the grade starts dropping as it comes across here. So my question is, and I did the math very quickly,
Yeah.
to try to minimize some of these retaining walls, because 1,000 adjacent over here, it seems like mathematically you could start stepping this wall down here, and you see an example of it as it slopes down. Where's our section over here?
Up there in the top right.
Here we go. See this section all in here?
Yeah.
1,000 is coming down. So the 1,000 is coming. It seems like when you start moving towards this direction, you could start stepping this wall, keep the swale back there, and then cut it back across this way.
Can I take a look at the grading?
Okay, anyway,
To answer that question.
the whole point is trying to minimize these large retaining walls. When I did the math real quick, it seems
I
like that's
understand
an
what you're saying,
opportunity.
and we try to do that in our design, and I'll double check the grading. If not, we'll make sure that it is done.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions here? Or?
I have some questions, but you could probably address them better at the podium. Mr. Yu, do you have questions for the applicant?
No, I don't. I'm okay.
Mr. Ellis?
No, I don't.
Have you performed a soil test on this project?
I believe we did it, Joe.
Yes, I believe they have at the, when it
I
was
believe that we had
for
submitted.
the environmental,
Environmental
Review, they
different than
have-
soils.
well, it's a part of it, but...
In other words, have they dug up test pits, or have
No,
they
I
drilled to
understand
see where
that.
the bedrock is?
You know, Mr. Simonian, we have not done the structural design, but I do believe that a soils report was done and submitted.
And without going through this report during this hearing, approximately how far below the surface is the bedrock of this?
Can I look at that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, answer that. Okay, it looks like in some of the test pits they did, they hit it 1 to 2 feet below. In some test pits, they went up to 4.5 feet and didn't hit. 5 feet in one. So let's say between 1 to 3.
So it's fairly close to the surface,
Yeah.
which is good. And have you had a civil engineer take a look at designing this project?
Okay, actually, we are civil engineers, and our contract with the owners is to provide this design that we're talking about, and then after it goes through the design review board, then we're going to do the structural design. We have already done a grading design, and that has been submitted, and I have a copy to show you.
I see. The reason why I'm asking these questions is because they're all intertwined.
Of course.
The hillside design goes hand in
Of course.
hand with the soil report, goes hands in hand with
Of
the
course.
structural design.
Of course.
And that's why I'm asking to see how far along you've come along, because if we start making decisions in a vacuum, not considering the rest of the puzzle, it could really
I
get you
love
in
you
trouble
for
down
that.
the road as
Thank
well
you
when
for-
you're going
thank
through
you for
building and
considering.
safety.
That is great, thank you.
Then, if I could then have you come up again, because I wanted to address the main concept
Sure.
of the design. And so, in section, when we cut the sections, we have probably a pile here,
Yes.
and a pile here, and a pile here.
That's highly
You're going to have a grate beam that's connecting these
That is
piles. And then you have a retaining wall that's retaining the rear portion to create this yard,
Yeah, and they require 15-foot setback by building.
so whatever that
Yeah.
is. And then you have the secondary retaining wall, which is actually going to be part of your structure.
Yes.
And then we have another wall here that's providing you the ability to cantilever with the ability to fill this in to have slab on grade.
Absolutely,
So far, we're on the same page.
absolutely.
And then when I come over to this elevation, there's some retaining walls here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And these are not lining up with these retaining walls. Is that correct?
Well, the one in the back will line up with that.
This one, but these three will not.
Well, but these are site retaining walls, and these are building retaining walls, so they don't necessarily.
So you're going to basically provide separate piles for these?
If that's what is required, yes.
Which could be costly. And
Well,
So-
now keep in mind that we have to provide a 4-foot clear area around the house for a fireman to be able to walk on, number one. Number two, we have to be able to have the dirt removed so we can have these windows in order to provide the egress requirements and the lighting and ventilation requirements. And after we have done that, then we should consider the cost of the building and come up with a more economic design. Now,
Well, and as you know, you can't have piles too close to one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that,
Yes.
it's not just the cost, it's just
Yeah.
logistics.
Okay.
So then, as far as these two sections are concerned,
yes.
where are they cut on the site?
I asked my associate.
If you would approach the board.
Yes,
And the
the
question
one in
is where are the sections cut? You could come up, you could just show us.
On the site plan, actually, you have exactly where it's going.
And this
That's the
one,
section A, and that's section B. Section A, section B.
and so this wall, this is this wall?
This one, section A, wait. A, section B. Yes. This wall is this wall.
Now, that one is the wall of the garage.
Yeah, exactly different, because I specifically made a cut here, so we can, this is the part where we have underneath the garage, here we don't have any. There's no space.
And so, really, section A goes
It's going to be like here,
going through
one is
this.
grow here, and one is grow that side, that side.
And where do these retaining walls, where do they occur on the site plan?
On the side plan, actually, this is it. This is your site plan. These are the retaining walls here.
So the 4 feet that he's talking about, that needs to be all the way around the house?
It's actually one side, it's not, until here, the way we work with the fire department, they ask us for 4 feet around so we can get to the second floor anyway. So that's how we provide all the way to here, and then we ended up here. Here, we had the option to eliminate it, so we don't have to go all around it. So one side, it would satisfy the fire department.
So are you proposing these exterior retaining walls, or are they not part of the latest scheme?
I think
They are. See, this is our grading plan, which shows the building and the site retaining wall.
These dark lines are
Yes.
the retaining walls?
Yes.
So they're creating this checker type of a, because they're at different heights?
Well, because we have some limitations. Number one is how high the retaining wall
5
can be
feet has to be.
above grade. Number two, the slope of it behind it cannot exceed 2 feet. Number three, we want to create the flat area, so in order to meet all those requirements, that's what we do.
And you have to regard these projects, because the slope is 70%, it's really hard to come up, and because of all the codes that require for conditional use permit, that's how we had to end up with the grading like this.
There's an existing flatter area, I should say, on the site. So when I visited it, there was a flatter area. Where does that fall in on your
I mean, as you get to this side is a higher step, on the other side is the lower.
Appears that there's been previous excavation.
Actually, here, as you see the...
yeah. Was that excavated at some point in time? Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm talking about, as Mr. Yu pointed out. Was that excavated at a previous time, or is that natural? It just
It's
came
natural, they
down?
haven't touched it.
I see. And so where does that occur on your drawings?
It would be where the driveway is.
Yeah, exactly, here.
Really? Yeah, I'd put it far farther to the west or the right.
It's further back.
Not here, because it's very high step.
But if you look at this
If
plan,
you get
this
look at
is the
the,
area where it's more flat and this is more slope.
I think it's more like here.
It's here. This is the flat area.
Flat area.
That's what the contours indicate, right?
Yeah.
It certainly looked like it had at some point been excavated.
Right.
Yeah. That was just my thought.
What's the minimum that you need on the front before you get to the garage?
The minimum setback?
Yeah, well, I think your front setback's 15 plus 4, right?
Yes, we have 4 feet easement.
So is that the minimum for your garage too then?
Driveway's 18, I believe.
So you're okay with
The
that?
slope of the driveway is 20% maximum, or we try to be below that.
So you could bring the garage back out a little more, right?
I have to sit on this section. I think because of this slope, the grading actual person has to answer, but I think because of the slope of the building, how we can get to that, that's how we meet the slope.
Right now, the driveway has 20% slope, so if we move it closer to the street, we will not be in compliance. Here's the,
and I did,
the different heights of the wall.
Right, and
It's shown here, and exactly what you're saying.
this is wall. In fact, it needs to be stepping down and then come across here and eliminate all this mass, because I think this is being done.
Depending on, that's the addition.
So this is wall. Okay, so the adjacent slope right here at this corner, the adjacent slope right there is 998.
There's 998.
Right, so let's go 3 feet above that.
Yeah.
That's the top
That's
of
the
wall.
survey, that's the original.
Right, that's the flat porch.
Right, so it's very good, so whatever. So if this is wall, this whole mass can be
Oh, so we
removed.
can show that beyond, okay.
Well, this is, if this mass,
On the other side.
right, and then this wall starts stepping back
We can
to
certainly...
1,000 back there, so this mass isn't there.
We can change that.
Okay.
That's what was misleading. Do we have any more questions?
Mr. Chairman, did we answer your questions?
You sure did. You sure did. I appreciate it. You've already filled out a speaker's card.
Yes.
Which is wonderful. And
So thank you so much.
Would you like for me to leave this grading plan with you so you can
Yes,
take a look?
yes, and my colleagues might have more questions for you at the podium, and you could
We're
sit
here.
down for now, so we appreciate it.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have,
That's in the packet here, isn't it? Isn't that the same as this? The grading thing that he has?
it's on sheet A1.
Yeah, that's what I'm on. I just looked like he gave him something else. 20% grade on the driveway.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant? Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. Our next speaker is Divinity Libby. You would state your name for the record, please?
Hi, my name is Divinity Libby, and I'm the neighbor at 412 Bentley. Just a couple things that were going on I'd like to address. I don't know, because I didn't own the house at the time, but I've been told by the realtor that I purchased the house from, who apparently is very familiar in that area, that area was excavated because they were having trouble getting a building permit. So they were trying to even it out a little bit to make the slope look less. And so, yes, that piece was actually removed by a prior owner, not by the people who own it now. And I think regarding your pictures that don't match, and you'll have to pardon me, my allergies are very bad today. I'm not sick, so I'm not going to get anybody sick. I guess there was a posting for the CUP hearing, but the posting was not actually done on the correct property. I know because I walk my dogs, and I saw the posting. There's a little, do you have a street map there?
Sure, here. Is that the...
But you have to talk at the podium because it's being recorded.
The posting was actually...
So they're not numbered, though, are they?
No, but this is Valentine comes down to meet Nesmith.
Right.
So I was walking my dogs here and saw the posting here. And so if people were taking photographs, they were taking them on the wrong property. And I was not aware that this hearing was actually existent, or the CUP, whatever was taking place, because the sign did not exist. Now they posted the sign for tonight's meeting on the correct property.
And you're referring for the conditional use
I assume so.
hearing that took place in the past?
I assume I am.
I see, okay.
I think so. So I don't know. Maybe you guys can fill me in a little bit, or maybe you can even fill me in, because I'm just the 70% grade. I know I live already in a house that's been cut into it, and we have cracks in the ceilings, and there's definitely our pool has cracks. That is not a very stable mountain in a way. I know that the street sweepers come by there several times a week sometimes, because there's rubble in the street every single day. And I'm just curious, because I know that the hillside requirements were strengthened at some point. Within the last couple of years, it was like 50%, and then 30% was allowed, and then 50% was allowed, and then they decreased the allowable building to 30% slope. And so because I have a house that's going to be depending on however this one gets built to stay up, I'm wondering if somebody can clue me in a little bit about, and maybe you're the person to do it, about how you cut that in with the houses above and my house close next door without having it all fall down at 70% slope, I guess.
I can't answer that question, but can I ask you a question? If I'm standing in the street facing your house,
Yes.
is this subject properly to your right?
Yes.
Right, okay. That's, I think, why the pictures didn't make sense to me.
The numbers
because
don't make sense.
The numbers don't match, right, when you walk around the neighborhood there.
Your home is the one that has the blue convertible Lexus front of it. Is that correct? Okay. Got it.
Is there a slope to your driveway into your garage, or is it pretty much straight off the street?
Well, on half, it's pretty straight, and the other one, we actually don't park any cars in it because,
Because it's a pretty steep.
yeah, it's pretty steep. And
When was your house built? You know?
31, I believe. And it's, pretty, like, the walls are quite thick, like the previous applicant. And I don't know, I guess, also the houses above us, the foundation, I guess it is, where it meets the ground, it's all cracking, and when we have heavy rains, I mean, sometimes, they have some retaining walls that are not retaining walls, really, I guess they're railroad ties, and the whole thing came down, and
It was probably not done with a permit. Yeah.
probably not done with the permit? Oh, because they hadn't finished it. So it's a lot of slope, and because the sign was in the right place, I didn't get to the last meeting, and I'm just curious, just kind of asking some questions.
Got it. Well, we'll try to address some of your concerns, and of course, staff is available afterwards to go through more specifics, and I also suggest that you sit down with the applicant as well. But for now, do we have any more questions for her?
I don't.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers on this case?
Thank you.
Very good. So that concludes the public portion of this case. Mr. Yu, do you want to start?
Sure. I have a couple concerns regarding the project. One speaks to the overall approach of designing on a hillside. The design as it stands now, I'm having problems with it because if you just take the house out of the site, it's a house that can stand in any site, almost flat or whatever. And so I have trouble with the fact that that's sort of just built into this hill, and then large retaining walls are carved in on three sides to accommodate this thing. I would like to see more of the floor sliding on the section to accommodate more of the slope better. I understand it's a steep slope, but I think that there are some things that you can start sliding out. For example, the garage can slide out a little bit further towards the street. And I know that you said there's a 20% slope on the driveway. I think it'll drop it down maybe a foot on your elevation. I think the garage level at 10 feet, maybe look into maybe reducing it a little bit if that helps. But by sliding that out, I think there's also less excavation into that lower portion. And that will also allow for the middle floor, the second floor to possibly pull it in and out a little bit more. I'm just having trouble with it just because of the fact that the articulation, it's basically this huge bar, 3 stories high or 2.5, depending on where the garage is, and it's just kind of placed onto the site. Slid slightly to put a couple of balconies in there, but I don't see much articulation of the spaces with that. So I'd like to see more of that in the project. And that's a lot of retaining walls. And I understand there's going to be retaining walls because of the site, but I think we can minimize more than it's already been done.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Mr. Insua?
Yeah, I would concur. Mathematically, when you start working the site and you see the adjacent top of walls and low walls, and then you put it to the architectural drawings, especially that section, there's mathematically some areas that don't work. I point to this one, where the top of wall on this side is at 1,000. So on our site plan, wherever it is.
On the top portion.
Yes, on the top portion, it's 1,000. So let's just call it wherever.
I think it's under that.
There it is, right underneath. And then when you start working around, the slate starts sloping. So that's an opportunity to start 3 feet above that adjacent slope, to start sloping, lowering those walls, which I think will help the retaining wall. So that when you reach over here, you're really 998, the adjacent soil. You can go 3 feet up, and then you come back, and you can start helping that retaining wall mathematically. I would also concur with Mr. Yu that when you look at the site, especially this kind of site that's got this downhill and this little bit of bowl, you start imagining the opportunity for the house also to work with that angle, and I just happen to do a quick sketch here, so that as you start tucking things in, you start having the building work better with the adjacent slope, shifted horizontal planes, not just vertical, but shifted a little bit of horizontal planes, so then your adjacent retaining walls work a little better with the contour. And I think that could create really an interesting house as it starts coming across the corner, where it starts working a little bit with the slope. And mathematically, when you just start working those site conditions, I think that we could have a better house fit on the site better. And this is not necessarily a good example, but one of the photographs that we saw in our photographic survey, I saw one, and it looks a bit like this. It could look a bit like this. I was trying to find a design that could be an example. Didn't see too many, but it's starting to look a little bit like that. When you see the adjacent slopes, the retaining wall along this edge over here, the house, its mass, I think it could work a little better with the site, and especially in our hillsides. I think that we traditionally have wanted.
The public portion is closed. If you would have a seat, and then we'll basically...
Okay. So I think that given it's a hillside, given that there's issues with respect to retaining walls, I think this house needs a little bit more exploring those opportunities with those adjacent slopes. But, design-wise and architecture-wise, it's fine. You can retain those elements. But I think it needs a little bit more execution.
Okay. Mr. Ellis?
I would defer to the architects and engineers, my fellow members here. I tend to agree with what you said. I thought when I went and looked at the site, looked at the house next door, the other lady who showed up, it seemed that the house as proposed seemed with a 20% slope in the grade for the driveway. Could they set it down in the hill a little bit better? It would be a little more incompatible with that house next door. Also wondered a little bit about the windows on that side and how that, I guess it's this elevation.
The east elevation.
Yeah, these. Where do they fit in relationship to that existing house? But it is what it is, and I think if they work to maybe to fit it into the hillside, like as you gentlemen are suggesting, would certainly make a better looking project.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Well, I generally agree with my colleagues here, and I am actually going to give you an opportunity at the end to come up, and we'll share with you the picture that we're discussing and so forth. What needs to occur, I think, at this point in time is the next generation of design. So we need to take all this information that's been presented and all these thoughts that have been presented as well, and then take into account the soil report, take a closer look at the civil design, have a structural engineer get involved at this point, and really start to clarify the heights of the walls, try to be efficient with the walls. It's not just the notion of, well, cost is no matter because if it's right, it's right. The idea is the less retaining walls you have, the less imposing this home will be on the surrounding landscape and the surrounding neighbors. And so when I was trying to illustrate to you is you might be able to trim down those retaining walls and therefore have a home that's more nestled into the hillside. Mr. Insua brought up a great point by shifting the home and the retaining walls so they're actually parallel with the contours. You're going to have much more of an efficient retaining wall system. So that's what I would suggest is to work with staff and really your consultants and engineers and fine-tune this project. It's a good start, but at this point you need to really figure out how this thing is going to get nestled into the hillside, how it's going to stand up, and then we'll start to basically modify the architecture of the home. And then you'll start having the terraces as you step back. You'll have the roof lines to match the slopes of the surrounding area, and then you'll have a coherent design that's really in tune with the hillside guidelines. And so if you would please approach the podium and I'll share with you the picture that Mr. Insua had illustrated, and so you could return that to staff afterwards, but the notion of the wall breaking as you come down the hill, and so you don't have a massing wall like that is the idea that you want to start implementing on your civil design.
Of course. In the spirit of providing as much information for you to be successful, we can look at sheet A4. And sheet A4 tells us that the top of wall here on your A1 drawing is at 1,000.
Yeah.
And the grade is here, and that the adjacent grade here is at 998, which right here. That in fact, 1,000 at 998 actually puts it down to here. And if you look at your drawing A1, it shows that the patio outside is at 985. So 985 is here, so you actually have the patio down here, the wall here, and the soil coming this way. So you can see how you have the opportunity to lower that wall if your drawings on A1 are accurate. And it's those kind of challenges on hillside that you're trying to work with. But other than that, I think there are great things about it. There are really good designs about it.
We would certainly be glad to do our best to accommodate your concerns, and we will work with the staff to do that. I made notes the best I could, and I imagine you would have a minute of the meeting which we can get with more.
Absolutely. It's actually will be online, and you could go to the library as well and get a DVD, or you could go to the city clerk's office and pay, I think it's $5 or something like that, and get a DVD copy of this hearing.
Sure.
And then you could take your time going through all the comments.
Thank you very much for your attention. We will certainly do this, and we'll be back before the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next case...
we need a motion here?
Oh, of course. By all means, I jumped the gun. Go ahead.
No.
So let's entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to,
Is it redesign or?
it's a return for redesign? No, we've had this conversation, but I'm new.
Return for redesign.
Is that what it is? So okay, fine, let's do that. With conditions as noted.
Okay. Do we want to repeat the conditions?
I can repeat the conditions. I've taken a note. Propose a design with floor sliding more into the hillside. Bring the garage forward towards the street so that there is less excavation into the hill. Reduce the height of the retaining wall by stepping them down and making them parallel to the contour of the site. And this is the last comment.
On the first one, I would say not necessarily just all into the hillside. If they can avoid maybe the garage level pulling out towards the street more to avoid excavating too much on the lower level, that's a suggestion. So not limited to just going into the hillside, but adjusting it per whatever makes sense. Is that true?
And trying to put a word to it, as Mr. Lee said, shifting the horizontal plane, but also perhaps,
maybe it splits off.
Breaking the box-like nature of the house. Right now, it's stacked. Imagine if one floor is like this, but there's no reason why the second floor couldn't go that way a little bit. So I don't know how to put that into words so much, but breaking the box-like design by
nestling it into the hillside.
Yeah, because I think what happens is they start stacking it for economy's sake, and at this site, there's nothing that keeps it from that doing it.
Yeah, so anyway, those comments.
And I would add to further the civil drawings and
That's a good point.
obtain a preliminary structural design as well prior to coming back.
Obtain a is it a soil report you would like?
Yes, so further the civil design, and then your next condition could be to obtain a preliminary structural design for the project.
Okay.
I think that's good. 'Cause that's going to make a lot of decisions for them on how to put tiles and all that.
I would note that even our building department does not approve full engineering drawings. They do not guarantee the ultimate safety of any building. They just review whether the engineer has followed standard procedures in terms of their profession in doing soil studies and whatnot. They don't actually give their stamp of approval to...
No cities warrant any, they're not here to give us warranties.
Yeah, and also the,
Plausible denial.
the design review chapter of the zoning code says that the board should not ask for full working drawings to base your approvals on. So I'm not...
Okay.
Want to be careful that what we're going for here is just guaranteeing that the design can be
The
built.
request is more geared towards suggesting that they explore the foundation portions of it because it's going to determine how the house is laid out because duplicating the case.
For clarification purposes, Mr. Foy, what are you basing your comments on? In other words, what led you to believe that was insinuated? So if you would just clarify as to...
Well, actually, I was just saying that to hope to get some clarification from you of what you were really after.
I see. So my comments specifically, or the board's?
About the preliminary...
Structural. Okay. What I meant about obtaining a preliminary structural design for the project is the following. On a hillside design, a project is heavily dependent on the structural design and also the structural integrity and so forth. And so without having a preliminary structural design, it's hard to imagine what the building is going to look like, because once you design it and then you go back and try to make it work structurally, it might shift, it might change, and therefore it might have an effect on what we've approved as a board aesthetically. So it's always a good idea when you're on a preliminary design basis on a hillside to get a structural engineer and a civil engineer involved, and they do some schematic designs for the project, and so then you have a good idea of how this building is going to stand up, and then you could integrate those structural aspects into your design. So that was what I meant by that.
So perhaps the way we word the condition is to make it a recommendation to consider obtaining a schematic structural design to inform the massing and siting of the house.
Okay.
Did you get all that?
Yes, I hope so. So this motion, the return for redesign made by Mr. Ellis, is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Insua seconded. This is the roll call. Board Member Ellis,
Yes.
Board Member Insua,
Yes.
Board Member Yu,
Yes.
Chairman Simonian.
Yes.
Motion passes by 4-0. Thank you. I have to mention that this project is under the old rules, so there is a 7 days appeal.
I got it.
Thank you.
Our next case is 1-PDR-2008-007-A, 1452 Dorothy Drive.
Yes, Mr. Chair, moving right along. The next case item before you is case number 1-PDR-2008-007, located at 1452 Dorothy Drive. The applicant is Alan Malekian. The project proposal is to construct a new 884 square foot addition to an existing 1,355 square foot single-family dwelling that is located on a 7,500 square foot lot. The project will include a new 440 square foot detached garage as located in this site plan. The old location was here. The new proposed location will be set back from a little further from the street, Dorothy. The project is located in the R1 residential zone, floor area district 1. If I may walk the board through the comment, or actually the plans. This is the proposed first floor addition floor plan. There's a conceptual landscape drawing that has been provided by the applicant. It indicates the stepping stones and changes to the existing landscape frontage on the front facade, elevations of the proposed construction, and a new perspective. Will the board like me to go over the neighborhood design guidelines or jump to the straight staff comments and recommendation?
The comments are fine with me. Would the board like to hear the guidelines? No, just comments.
Okay, the first one regarding site planning. The overall location of the building, driveway, garage, and landscape design appears to be an improvement to the existing condition and appropriate for the project site and neighborhood. Staff comments regarding mass and scale. The building mass is well oriented on the site. The overall massing characterized by the setback, articulation of the front facade, and multiple roof levels results in a building which is appropriate to the site and surrounding neighborhood. Moving along to the building design and details, staff feels that the architecture is consistent with the contemporary style, and the building appears to be well designed and appropriate for the neighborhood. Overall, summing up all of the staff comments, the summary is that the house is of a contemporary design and is high in quality with the materials and details that reinforce the architectural design of the house. Now for the recommendation. The one-story house is modestly scaled and well-crafted. As a result, what fits well into the neighborhood context. For these reasons, staff recommends approval of the project. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is in the audience. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Do we have any more questions for staff?
No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The designer for this project is in the audience, Alan Malikian.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Malikian, the designer of the project. My office is 919 West Glen Oaks Boulevard. The project has evolved from since when I met the owner since the first time. Originally, it was a two-story, moving the garage out and creating the two-story building, and we managed to maintain the existing house and do the addition and get the appropriate usage out of the building and be able to come up with some creative ways of using the backyard better, demolishing the existing 1.5-car garage and moving it back and maintaining a 2-car or building a new 2-car garage. That was one of the moves. The other thing was we wanted to come up with something creative, at the same time keeping in mind that there's a percentage that we need to maintain as far as the demolition and causing this building to be a new construction rather than maintaining so certain gestures and the heights, the roof, pitch roof, and everything that has been proposed are going to be over the existing roof framing, and a lot of the additions are going to be taking that in consideration. And we've basically used all the quality materials. The handout that you have has a much better quality of the colors and the articulations of the materials, how they're actually working together rather than the larger overall print out. We do have a material board. We picked all the quality materials that we can get. The combination of the stone, the plaster, the windows, the metal roofing, and I think it gives us the look that I was looking for, and I think it'll be a good addition for the neighborhood.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Malikian?
Do we have a materials board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe it's located on the last page of the photographic survey.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is this material here that's around the planer?
Well, if I can... This is a concrete, four-in-place concrete with score joints, and it's going to be basically concrete.
I see. So they'll wet score it?
It will just be scored, yeah. It'll be scored with the tie rods and the stone and the contrast of the concrete versus the stone. So that's what we're trying to do. And pretty much the floating steps
I have no further questions. Thank you. Do we have any more speakers on this project? No? That concludes the public portion. Mr. Insua? Sure.
I think this is a good example where you take an old neighborhood and homes that have a particular style and shows that you don't need to repeat it. There are things about this house that are obviously different and contemporary, but I think it goes back to where they executed well. And when I look at the eclectic neighborhood where we have, period homes and interpretations of Tudor and stuff, I like this design for its uniqueness and being different and well done, where I don't particularly care for that one. Because this one, this to me was just an removal. I was trying to do a big multi-syllable word. A removal, a removal of all the things that are interesting and trying to do something with stucco and stuff. And someone would call that contemporary. It doesn't make it for me. Where I look at this one and I go, okay, the footprint's about the same. I like the sides and the back a little better than I like the front. When I look at the way that you can take this contemporary home and stretch out a little bit more of these panels, if you look at the south elevation, I like the way that the side has the opportunity with the variety of materials to emphasize the things a little better, with the standing metal roof, with the variety of eaves, with this nice panel of stonework. I think it gives the material a chance to do what it's going to do. This also is the same way. Look on this nice little eyebrow windows, does that and this and proportions. The back, I think, also has a little bit of a better chance to express those materials. And here, I think it's good. I love this. I like this, but something in here is not. Now, is it a deal breaker to say no? Because I think that when you look at everything together, I think it's done well, and it's a breath of fresh air to show that in an existing neighborhood, it's about quality. It's about quality design. It's about proportions. It's about materials. And if someone says, well, in my opinion, what is it to be compatible with the neighborhood? The neighborhood is a period homes from the 20s and 30s. This is compatible in the proportion, the materials, the variety, and well executed. So I think it's a good job in that sense. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Ellis? Nicely done. I do that for a living.
No, I was actually wishing you'd gone to Mr. Yu, so I'd have a couple more minutes to think about the compatibility question, because I'm a big proponent of compatibility. No, I'll dive right into it. I can talk and think at the same time. I agree also. I think it's very well executed. It certainly, size-wise, fits in. I agreed also. I don't quite know what to call it, but your comment about the front, I would agree to that also. And I do think it's compatible not only in size, but, in style. I would support it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Yu.
Got to get out of here.
I, too, think that it's a good project. I think I was really interested in the project because of all the different materials that are there, and it kind of worries me. Oh man, there's so much stuff going on. But I think that it's going to determine sort of how it's detailed and how it transitions from one material to the next. And I think that's what's going to make it really, really nice. And I'm sure you'll do a great job on that. I really like that south elevation. You're right. I think the materials are, you get to sort of glimpses of them, and you also get sort of large expanses. And the windows, sort of how they're sort of framed by the materials, and I like the way that you kept some of the window sizes on the north elevation, sort of like a tie back into some of the existing house. I guess my only thing was on the west elevation towards the front. Right now, it is sort of a setback on one side, and then you pulled it back to make it along the same line. I was just wondering if there's any way to pull that back further towards the street, or is it right at the setback? Okay. Then maybe my only suggestion would be maybe we can maybe introduce something that maybe sticks out this way to kind of give it a break between this and that. But those are minor things that maybe more of a brow piece that kind of protrudes out, provides a little bit of shading. I know it's on the west side. But I think it would tie in sort of the larger face with a smaller face, and maybe provide a cover in your main entry, which is wide open right now. But all in all, I think it's a good project. The layout's great. I'm glad I didn't go 2 floors. I think it works much better with this scale.
I make one more comment. I think the lighting plan on this at night is really going to be spectacular if you can execute it, because these contemporary homes with this different kind of material lit well, it could really pop nice. I love contemporary homes that are lit well.
Mr. Yu, do you have more comments?
No,
I agree with the overall comments that the board has made. I think it's well executed, well designed, it's fun, it's today. You've really taken an existing building with not too much character, and you're not really adding a second floor, but you're really expanding out, using the site efficiently, and using contemporary materials to create interest, and that's the idea, and it is going to be compatible with its neighbor, and it is going to work. So I commend you on a job well done. Do we want to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Do we have any conditions? No?
There were no staff conditions.
And while there are no staff conditions, staff would be happy to read some items into the record so that we can make it part of our record of decision, or we can go ahead and modify what's in the report to reflect the comments. So if you'd like, I can read that into the record, or I can simply state that what's going in the staff report will become part of the record of decision.
Oh, read it, please.
Okay. For the site planning, overall, the location of the building, driveway, garage, and landscape design appears to be an improvement to the existing condition and appropriate to the project site and neighborhood context. We could also add that the one-story addition is preferable to a two-story addition in this location, and was accomplished well on this site.
No, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
You're reiterating, I think, what I said, and that's
Yes.
not what I meant.
Okay, so we will not add that. It will remain as written. Mass and scale, the building mass is oriented well on the site. The massing characterized by setback articulation and the front facade and multiple roof level results in a building which is appropriate to the site and the surrounding neighborhood. Building design and details. The architecture is consistent with the contemporary style, and the building appears to be well designed and appropriate for the neighborhood. There we can add that it adds a uniqueness and a contemporary style, which is compatible to a older and eclectic neighborhood. I think that would be useful for us to add. And overall summary, this house is of a contemporary design with high-quality materials and details that reinforce and enhance the architectural design of the house. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second. Or did you?
No, I wanted you to do it, because...
You did?
No, I did not, but please do.
Okay. Somebody moved it.
Yeah, no, you moved.
We do have a motion.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Made a motion to approve as stated.
And I'll second.
Okay, the motion was made by Mr. Yu to approve the project as submitted with staff comments. This will be roll call. Mr. Aliano is absent. Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Mr. Chair, for the record, this case was submitted under the old ordinance, and the applicant will have, or actually anybody choosing to appeal, will have only 7 days.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was our last case of this evening.
Yes, it was. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We realize you didn't get the minutes until yesterday, so if you feel comfortable approving them today, if you read them, that's great. If not, we can just postpone that to the next meeting.
I have not had a chance to read them, so if you three have, then we have a quorum and we could approve them.
I got them, I saw them emailed, and I read them this morning. They were good.
I, of course, was not here for the whole meeting, so I probably should abstain from approval. I'll approve the first 2 projects as written, so whatever.
So we have to hold off.
Okay, it sounds like we'll wait till the next meeting.
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Move that forward. Okay.
No big deal.
Don't send them to me again. I got them.
Staff and board business.
I would just like to want to inform the board and anyone in the public who's watching that this coming Wednesday at 6 p.m., the Commission on the Status of Women is holding an event at the Alex Theater, which is designed to familiarize people with the various boards and commissions that the city has, the opportunities to serve on them. And it will be held in the forecourt of the Alex Theater. It's a very informal event, kind of an open house sort of format where you can wander around and talk to staff and hopefully representatives of different city boards and commissions and find out what they do and get some information on how to apply.
Mr. Foy, what time is that meeting?
It's 6 p.m., Wednesday, May 21st.
Thank you.
Alex Theater. Thank you.
And I'd also like to remind everyone that there will be a garden tour, I believe sponsored by the
Glendale Historical Society.
Glendale Historical Society, wanted to make sure I had the name right, meeting at 10 a.m. on Sunday, the 18th, at the Brand Library.
And although it's sponsored by the Historical Society, it will benefit exercise programs for cancer survivors and cancer patients at Adventist Hospital, I believe.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, do you think it would be a good idea to quickly go over this new procedure of reiterating the recommendation/draft record of decision and making it part of record, and so we could maybe opine on it quickly?
I'd be happy to do that. It's not listed as a discussion item, so we could maybe have some brief comments, and if you'd like, we can add it to the agenda as a discussion item. But just briefly, council and the community, as they were discussing the changes to the design review process, had requested as part of the decision-making process that a record be made as far as the basis of the decisions of the Design Review Board to make sure they were commensurate with all adopted guidelines and standards. And so we have, in trying to achieve that, we've started to modify our report templates to include summaries at the end of each major section. And for instance, the single family template, if you will, is divided into three main sections: site planning, mass and scale, and architectural design materials and details. At the end of each one of these sections will be a brief summary of that section in italics. Then there will be an overall summary, and all those pieces will be included as part of the substantiation of the recommendation that we're making. Obviously, if there is a disagreement with how a project achieves the compatibility with the guidelines, compatibility with the neighborhood, overall approval, we will include those items as we did in the last project. Again, if you'd like to discuss better ways to implement it, have extended questions, we would be happy to list it as a discussion item, and we will be scheduling within the next several weeks a joint meeting, sort of an orientation for both DRBs. We actually may do that separately with each board, so that we'll do it 2 times, and that will give the public 2 opportunities to speak and also to get familiar with what we're doing, because there have been a fair amount of changes that we've been implementing as policy starting in January, and then the new ordinance was passed April 20, and went into effect April 24th. So that will be coming on your agenda as well.
Thank you.
Do you have an idea when those meetings will be scheduled?
We have not yet prepared the presentation, and likely will be, rather than a joint meeting, we'll be doing it separately, so it will simply be as part, we'll likely attach it to a lighter meeting at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Insoo?
Yes, we had 3 projects today, 2 of which we approved. The 2 that we approved had, at the end of the staff report, the recommendations for draft and decision. And the one that we didn't approve, unfortunately, did not have that. One of the thoughts, or maybe you can add to it, is that if before a project comes to the DRB, your comments are of the type that says recommendations and draft record, and I know it says draft, but the language is well-crafted, works well, and all that other stuff, and we in DRB find that it isn't what is being said. There seems to be a little bit of inconsistency between what was pre-written and what our decisions are. For example, the last project that did not have that recommendations and draft of record decision did say, unfortunately, that through dialogue and so on and so forth, the design is elegant and consistent with style, the new house is interesting, so on and so forth, so appropriately built into the hillside, so on and so forth, and the staff recommends approval. Well, in fact, we found it to be counter of what staff recommended. And I think, just as for dialogue, we need to be careful of saying that you guys support it completely and all the things that are potentially said when it hasn't come to board yet, and we may find it, like the last project, to not be consistent with that. It may be giving mixed signals to the general public before it even gets approved at board.
Well,
again, we're kind of getting into discussion here on something which hasn't been agendized. I will say that it happens all the time that staff might make a recommendation which this board or any other commission or the city council may have different ideas on, and you are the decision makers, not us. It's clear that what we're making is only a recommendation.
Right, okay.
If we need to make that clearer, we will, but...
Well, I think it would be wise to set it up as a discussion item. This way we'll all would have had a chance to understand it, because this is the first time that we're seeing it. And of course, as we go on with a few hearings, we're going to get a better idea of what we're trying to accomplish and what the different roles are with staff and the board and itself, and how to get intertwine it into a successful hearing. So let's set it up as a discussion item and take it from there.
We'll go ahead and schedule that for your May 29th meeting. That will be your next meeting.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Adjourned? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes.